Hi, I'm Chris Paradise. I'm one of the co-owners of Adventure Explorations. And I'm also the lead guide for the cycling that we do. And we take a little bit of a different twist as we do on most of our adventures. And a little twist being sometimes around the gear, sometimes around where we go in terms of experiencing that adventure. We're always customizing it based on you, based on the weather, based on what's happening, in this case for cycling, what's happening on the roads. And you get last minute surprises like the marathon nobody advertised, or the triathlon that came out of nowhere and they're redirecting traffic, or it could be construction. So you're never really quite sure what you're gonna get, but we always start with the premise that it's gonna be customized for you. It's going to be privately guided. It's going to be anywhere from an experience for you or for your group. I really don't like to take out more than 6 or 8 at a time because I won't have a chance to get the group in the vibe together and get that experience of a group ride if that's the case, or if it's a solo ride or just 2 people. I don't want to lose the chance for people to really connect in a very different kind of way, because the value of cycling, as probably most people know, is you can move with enough pace that you can see things. When you're walking, which is also wonderful, you just don't get that experience of being able to see around the corner at the dog that's running off chasing the cow or chasing the horses, or the horses get stirred up, or the tractor cutting the hayfield or whatever. The cycling allows us to experience outside and the roads in a way that's just very, very different than really any other kind of experience. You can't drive a car slow enough to get kind of, I call it a slow roll kind of experience. And so cycling opens up doors and emotions, I would say, as your endorphins, or these natural energy sparks that our bodies give us, as those start to get activated. And so at Adventure Explorations, we really want to make sure you get the experience you want, and it's kind of on us to be able to create something that's different. So what does that mean when we say we give it our own twist? Cycling is, during COVID times, and really true all the time, but particularly now, it's very hard to find a high quality bike that isn't a little bit beat up. If you're going the used route on Facebook Marketplace, let's say, and try to find a new bike now that's at the quality that you're looking for at the price you want to pay is also challenging. And so we're at a time where cycling's at its peak and they can hardly keep them in the stores, but we really want to get out and we really do want to get on our bikes, which people are doing, which is great. So our twist on this is come as you are, always, and bring the bikes you have, and we'll review them and go through the safety protocols and make sure that what you're riding on is safe for everybody. And we can come from a skill level, very beginner, all the way up to the most advanced riders. And so my only ask, and our only ask, is that we're out with people of a similar goal. We know that experiences and expertise on the bike is going to vary, and we can manage that, but that the goal is the same. And so if the group wants to do 15 miles, that's the goal. If a group wants to do 50 miles, that would be the goal. We can stretch that for those that only want to go 15 or only want to go 50, but we have to manage that up front. On the gear side, the bikes have to be able to deliver on whatever that goal is. If it's a mountain bike, and we're riding on the road, which is where our trips today are occurring, it's going to be a difficult ride if we have to go too long on that bike, particularly if we have a larger group. And so we want to make sure that the bikes are set up in such a way and are of the quality and set up so that you can have the maximum experience. So come as you are means bring your bikes if that's what your choice is and what you're most comfortable on. But we also have an option, which a lot of people are choosing, which we call Italian cycling. So why Italian cycling? Full disclosure, in these times, it's very tough to find bikes of quality, and so what we said was, what can we do that's different? What can we bring to the experience that is a whole nother opportunity to introduce a way of cycling and machinery and gear and equipment that can give you a different experience? So we went out looking for Italian bikes in particular because in the 1970s, the Italian bikes, the Italian steel bikes in particular, made predominantly of Columbus tubing, provided an experience. While the bike was heavier, it also has a lot more give, and it has a lot more connection, physical connection to the roads, to the undulations of the road, the hills and so on that you would experience. And so the ability to find these Italian bikes, which really are works of art because they're handmade, gives you a chance to experience cycling in a very different kind of way. So I brought one today, and we have really every size for people who are probably, I'd say, from 4'10", really up to 6.65, 6 feet 5 inches. We have a bike that'll fit you. So I brought a Willier today as an opportunity to show some of the differences that these bikes bring versus some of the bikes that you might have experienced in your own home, or bikes that you might have gone out and tried on your own. So the Willier Tristina is a very famous bike that goes way back to 1906. And the history of these just brings, the lore kind of brings a story that makes the cycling even more interesting. And so this Willier frame in particular was all handmade. And I'll take you through the bike and some of the details, and you'll see why some of these things matter. But like the other videos that we've put out, from rock climbing to kayaking to the use of different types of paddles, all the equipment really makes a difference. It's also nice to ride something that has a kind of energy and a vibe to it that just is a little bit different. So from the start of that brand, they built bikes for the Italian community in particular, and then a team was formed in 1945, a professional cycling team, and Giordano Couture became the kind of dominant cyclist. He won the Giro d'Italia and many other Italian infamous rides. And so this bike became very famous. Many years went by, and then they discontinued it and ended the brand, and then it was restarted in 1969 with a pro team, and then that pro team became very successful on these bikes as well. In 1985, 1986, Claudio Corti rode this to the Italian championships 2 years in a row, and he really put the business on the map in a different kind of way because of this color. And so this golden copper look is very similar to another Italian manufacturer called Bianchi that has this celeste green that's very, very unique to them. And so this copper gold color is a very particular process to get the bike to appear that way. So it's combined with handmade frame, this beautiful paint, and the beautiful presentation of the branding, and also the Columbus tubing, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and this Campagnola gear set. And really the whole experience connects you to the road in a way that's very difficult to replicate with the carbon frames and the carbon bikes of today, because the bike is set up in such a way and the frame is set up in such a way that you can really feel the road, and you're much more connected from the wheels through to the spokes, all the way to the gearing system, even to the seat post and the angle of the seat post, and what this is called the seat post to the triangle, and the way this whole bike is set up. Let's talk about what makes an Italian bike from the 70s made of Italian steel and Columbus steel tubing special, without going too deeply. And I know there's lots of people out there cycling crazies, because we are, who want to know as much as we can about the gear, and it's true of everything, but cycling has its own peculiar kind of fascination with parts. So I talked about the bike and the color. I talked about the Italian-ness of it, which is that it's beautiful in the way that artists really view their art, that they want it to be something that people can connect with emotionally. So if I start at the front, what makes this special and different? I'm going to combine a little bit of the mechanical with the art part. So it starts really with the set of wheels and the tube, the tire, and the rim itself. And so true on both the front and the back that it's a matching set. The kind of starting from the inside, these are Super Record Campagnola parts. Campagnola, the infamous Italian manufacturer that has made parts really almost since the beginning of cycling, became a thing. And certainly from a racing point of view, the Campagnola Super Record hubs, both front and on back, are very much part of what creates this connectedness to the road. And the spoking system that is particularly used by the Nisi wheel itself, and how these spokes are strung into this particular pattern gives it a way to connect that's very, very intimate. True all the way through to the back, the mechanical system. What's unusual about this in today's day and age is where the shifters are. Most people today, if they've bought a bike anytime in the last 20 years, are really used to shifters being up on the brake hoods. The difference here in the 70s is this is a friction-based shifting system. Again, using these Campagnola parts, both the rear derailleur, the front derailleur, and the shifters, all being connected as part of the gear system. But I want to talk a little bit about what's known as the cockpit. So like in a car, we have a steering wheel, we have brakes, we have a gas pedal, we have a dashboard. This is a bike. We do not have a dashboard, but we have a cockpit, which includes the handlebars, which includes our brakes and our brake hoods, and in this case, the cabling that's enabling the brakes and everything that's happening in the gearing system. So from the front, you really are finding your comfort somewhere on the handlebars, and this 3T handlebar is very, very well known in the racing world, and it really became transformed into the road cycling for the tourist, for the average rider. It's very, very unique in how it is customized to be able to fit this particular bike. It's very, very comfortable, and the placement of the brakes, which are also Campagnola Italian parts in particular, are placed in such a way that it's at a maximum comfort level. Working our way back through to this stem, and this gentleman, Couture, is actually one of the professional riders that rode with Willier and was also part of helping this brand become what it is. As we work our way back, you can see the rake on the fork, and if you go home later and check your own bike, you will see that the rake on this fork, and it's why I put it on a stand, is very, very different than the rake you probably have in your garage. And so you can see it has this very gentle slope until you get to the end. So you're actually riding in this position. The fork is helping to create that, but if you think about the road and its relationship to the fork, you're getting a very different experience than you would if it was more upright. Mountain biking, you're going to find that it's more upright than it is raked in this way. And so it creates more of a gentle connection to the road, and you get that all the way back through your hands. As we come back into the gearing system, the wiring and the cabling that comes from the shifters through the front derailleur all the way to the rear derailleur is all about what kind of power, what kind of speed, what kind of experience do you want to have based on what's happening in front of you. If it's a flat road, you don't need to shift that often. But we know just from all the experience and the testing and all the years and years of racing, finding that balance between the speed of your legs and the power you're looking to create is really what we're constantly problem solving. We have a hill, we have to decide how quickly do we want our legs to spin, because if you don't spin your legs, fast enough, it actually builds up lactic acid in your muscles, which will cause a problem, partly going up a hill, or if you're trying to push too much gear. And so you have your inside really controlling the back, the outside controlling what's happening up front. And so we're always navigating what's in front of us, but we're also trying to consider what's coming up. So if we see a slight incline, that means we probably have to downshift. We want to anticipate making our gearing a little bit easier because we're getting more friction as a result of going up that hill. And so the front derailleur is really controlling whether the chain goes on the smaller chainring or the larger chainring. The larger chainring has more teeth, so if you think about the bike turning, it takes more to turn that all the way around. If it takes more to turn it, chances are it's going to be more difficult. And we'll talk about the real derailleur in a second. The inside chainrings, and sometimes there are more than just two, will give you an easier ride because that circumference is smaller. And so the shifter then comes back and controls this real derailleur, and the short version is you're constantly using your shifters to anticipate how much gear do you want, which is controlled by the front and controlled by the back. This cog, this set of individual gears, are determining how much speed, obviously, you're going to generate, but how you're going to create that speed, how you're going to create that power based on which gear you select. Back here, the smaller the gear, the more difficult to turn. The relationship between the front chainring and the rear chainring is controlled by the rear derailleur. And so that's the gearing system that you're constantly relating to in order to anticipate and have a ride that you enjoy. If you want to go faster, you ask for more gear. You get yourself into the smaller gears on the back, and you'll move to the larger chain rings up front. In order to be able to go faster, you're either going downhill or you're pedaling faster. So those are the kinds of things we're thinking about on a bike like this, where you're always adjusting your gears based on what's coming, but in the case of an Italian bike in particular, you have this relationship with the shifters here as opposed to here, which means you're moving your hand down to shift. The brakes on this bike are pretty different from a typical bike today, but they are still doing the same thing, which is squeezing the rim. And it's a friction-based system. They haven't come up too much with a better way, although there are disc systems now, particularly for mountain bikes. You're still talking mostly about friction and controlling the speed using your front brake and your rear brake. The rest of the bike is pretty typically laid out the way most bikes are, with the seat tube and the rake here, and how that relates to the length of the bike and how that relates to the fork in the front and how that road experience is giving you what you're looking for to enjoy the ride. And that's the Willier. We use these bikes as a choice additionally to guiding the trip, and gives you a chance to go out and have a slightly different experience on something that's beautiful and artistic in a way that is unusual to find today. Same principles apply in terms of the safety. We wear masks if we're riding closely together, if we're 6 feet apart or more, and we really push that up to 8 feet, even 10 feet, depending on the experience of the riders. We'll take our masks off. But we're always carrying them, and we're always being careful, and particularly with sweating and cycling, we're paying attention to how hard we're working. If it's on flats, maybe we take our masks off. If we're all cranking up a hill, maybe we put our mask back on, or we give ourselves more distance. So the COVID experience is something we're very, very sensitive to. And similarly as our other adventures, we also carry the safety gear. We also carry emergency kits. We're also carrying meds if that's the case. And if we're going to stop for food, obviously we'll bring that with us. That's not something you as the individual have to worry about. We set that up all in advance. And if we're going to make a stop, the food is waiting for us. So that's cycling. And my experience with cycling is not unlike all of the guides we have here. We bring lots of knowledge, lots of expertise, both in terms of the ride, the gear, the bicycles themselves, the experience, but also making sure everybody has a really great time.